Welcome, everyone, to People on Dating. I'm your host, Will Morales. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this podcast is about the ups and downs of dating and how to navigate through it. Today, my guest is Courtney Boyer. Did I get that last night? And it's funny, I wanted to practice before, and of course, I always forget. She is a relationship and sexuality expert and author of Not Tonight, Honey, Why Women Actually Don't Want to Have Sex and What to Do About It. Courtney, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Will?
I am good. I'm good. So, Courtney, tell us a little bit about yourself. What was that journey like? What was that aha moment that you got into the sexuality experience? You're an author. What was that journey like for you?
Yeah, so I grew up in the evangelical Christian church, where and was very steeped in purity culture. So the whole true love waits, no sex before marriage, and just realized how harmful and damaging that was, not only as someone who got married at 22, but then also the more that I started to, see relationships, my parents' age and a lot of their marriages dissolving, who just didn't have the resources to feel supported. And so in college, I decided to not go to law school and instead decided to go and study sex.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
Yes, so talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I went and I got a master's in education in human sexuality and worked as a sexuality educator, worked with a lot of high-risk populations, and then just had so many people come and ask me really personal questions that I didn't feel like able ethically to answer. So I went back and I got another master's in mental health counseling and opened up a mental health and sex therapy practice and just started working with individuals and couples. My husband's in the military, and so we move every few years. And so that was tough to keep up the different licensure requirements. And I had 3 little kids at home and decided that I was going to take a little break. And during that time, found out about coaching. And so then once we moved again and my kids were a little bit older, I switched over to the coaching industry and just loved it and continued to speak and write and would have people tell, gosh, you got to write a book. You should write a book. And so I decided to write a book based on the 2 questions that I get asked most by women, which is, what is wrong with me? And am I broken?
Wow. Okay. I mean, that's some journey. Today's topic is a great one. Why women don't want to have sex and what we can do about it. So let's jump into that subject.
Sure.
If a woman does say that it's not, like you said in the book, not tonight, honey, as a man, should we feel like, okay, it's just one of those things, but if it's continuing, a couple of days, maybe a week or so, should we start worrying about us? Should we start worrying that maybe something's going on with her? Is she seeing someone else? Some of the insecurities for a man might pop up. What's going on here? Why is she holding back?
Sure.
So yeah, talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think it's normal to feel rejected when we are turned down for sex because sex is such a personal thing. And a lot of times men will use sex as a way to connect, but women want to feel connected before they have sex. And so if there's no connection, then it makes it hard a lot of times, especially for a woman to rally, what I like to say, to get her in the mood, because a lot of times, women, especially, they're either staying at home with the kids, so they're in mom mode all day long, and they're getting touched and, breastfeeding, and, they're just over touched and overstimulated. And then, they have their spouse comes home or their partner comes home and they want to touch them, and nobody is fueling or feeding her. And so you're dealing with a partner who's very depleted.
Right.
And so versus, same with a working outside of home mom who's, works all day, comes home is tired, but, studies show that women tend to do what's called the not second service, but basically they come home and they still make dinner and they do the laundry and they do all those things. And so sex, it becomes another thing on their to-do list. And unless the partner is really helping them with their mental load or the physical load of things that need to be helped, a lot of times they say, no, I'm not interested in that. So honestly, when I work with couples, if they, the male says, hey, do you think that she's seen somebody else? I would say, no, it's very unlikely that she is, because she's probably just so exhausted from trying to survive.
Wow. Um, and that's where a man should come in, at least help with the load, whether it's a mental load or at least the physical load, especially if she's staying home and watching one or two kids or whatever that may be. The man should come home, at least try to help out or something. But if a man is selfish, then he says, "Hey, I'm conquering the 9 to 5. I'm
Yeah.
conquering my business." Now how does that play? Excuse me. How does that play into the relationship? Because now the woman's feeling like, oh, it's all about him now, and so I'm going to withhold what I can give him, and now he's resentful.
Mhm.
As a coach, as an author, having friends in the industry, uh, how how do we navigate through that then?
Yeah, I think that one of the conversations that needs to happen is around what I call sexpectations. And
Okay.
so, like, just really clear expectations around, like, how often are you wanting to have sex? How often are you wanting to connect intimately? And that doesn't necessarily have to be actual sex, but it can just be any type of emotional or sexual experience. And then another really great question that a lot of couples don't ask is, what kind of sex are you wanting to have? And I
Mm,
think that's something that a lot of partners, especially the male partners, miss because they
yeah,
don't understand how a woman's body works. And so for them, most men, it takes 3 to 7 minutes for them to climax. And for women, it takes like 10 to 17 minutes once they're already aroused. And so there's this big discrepancy of, you know, between men and women and sexual pleasure. And a lot of women are not feeling like their pleasure is being prioritized. So
yeah.
yeah, it's no wonder that they're not really that interested in having the kind of sex that only lasts, I don't know, 7 to 10 minutes and doesn't involve her pleasure.
Wow. Okay, so that's very interesting. So how can a man uh make her woman more pleasurable, if that makes sense? If
Yeah.
in other words, you lasted 3 to 7 minutes, or should we now include more foreplay?
Mhm.
Maybe that's a way to go. Using toys in the bedroom, or stimulating conversations. What are some ways that we can make sure that she's having a good time also in the bedroom?
I think the most important thing, and this is actually one of the sexiest things you could ever to say to somebody, is what can I do to make you feel safe?
Right.
Because if somebody does not feel safe, and I'm not talking like physically safe, I mean like emotionally safe, sexually safe, then they are not going to like give up their body like easily to somebody else. Right. They're not going to be open to wanting to do toys or whatever it is to like quote spice it up. Like a
Yeah.
really easy way to increase intimacy in your relationship and increase sexual frequency is to have that conversation of, do you feel like you can be yourself? Do you feel pressured like by me? Like, okay, like you're quote taking too long, or do you feel like you're supposed to perform? Or I mean, even men can feel pressure too. Like, do
Yeah.
you feel, the female partner saying, like, do you feel pressure to perform? Or do you feel like and so then that feels overwhelming to you? I mean, there's just so many beautiful conversations that can, emerge from just that simple question.
Yeah, so it's definitely communicating,
Absolutely.
talking to the woman, talking to your girlfriend, wife, whatever that may be, and
Yeah.
just making her feel like, hey, how can I make you feel safe and all that.
Yeah.
Um, i- are men prepared for that though, to have that type of care? So,
Yeah.
Courtney, I got you there. So I know I can't
Yeah.
stop you, but I know I made you laugh a little bit. So, what can a man do? Especially again, I guess it depends. And tell me if I'm wrong. Uh, their age. If they're in their 20s, they might not know this, but are they still immature at 40, 50, 60? Is it life experience, or just like you said, just having that conversation and just learning as you go?
Yeah, well, okay, so there's a couple of things you asked. So the first thing I should say that I like to tell people is never ask a question that you don't want to know the answer to.
Ah, fair enough.
So if I'm going to ask that question to my partner, I better damn well be ready to put up and to provide for them with what and be able to receive what they have to tell me.
Right.
So I think that if you are not ready to make your partner feel safe, then this relationship is not going to last very long. Or if it does, it's not going to be healthy. It's things will not end well Because if that is something that you do not have in your toolbox, which a lot of people don't have,
Right.
your first priority should be going about, how do I create safety in my relationship? That is basic 101.
Okay.
So if you are not there, find a way quickly to get there. Because if not, you're just going to keep having the same issues with different women, or the same marriage after whatever it is. In terms of maturity level, like I've met men in their 20s who are very mature, that they ask that question, they understand what they need to provide for their partners. And I've known men in their 50s who can't answer that question. So I don't
Right.
think it's necessarily about age. I think it's about emotional intelligence. I think it's maturity. Sure, age, if you've been around longer, you have the opportunity to learn more skills and be like better yourself. But yeah, I don't necessarily think that age is indicative of maturity.
Right. So, if someone does want to, obviously provide a safe haven for
Mhm.
their partner, are there steps that they could take? I mean, definitely read your book, Not Tonight, Honey, definitely. But when you coach and you're coaching
Mhm.
students, are, th- because this is a very important, I think, topic to talk about. How can we get the man there?
Yeah.
If my question made any sense.
Yeah, it does. I think the first thing is to be honest and ask, do you want to be there? Because
Right.
it's a lot easier to maintain the status quo and like kind of make the effort or whatnot than it is to really make the effort. And I think for
Right.
some men, it's um can be not embarrassing, but maybe like shameful to admit that like I don't have a skill or a tool that like really my partner could use.
No,
So I
fair
think
enough.
having that self-awareness and the humility to say, I value myself and I value my partner and I value our relationship so
Mm,
much that I'm willing to go out and learn and acquire this skill so that I can be better for me and them and for the relationship. So I think that's step number one.
right.
um, Once they really have like that teachable mindset, is to try to think of things that, well, not even think, like they could honestly ask themselves, like just really like, what makes me feel safe? When was the last time I felt safe? Or if there have been intimate relationships with my parents, with past partners, that I felt like really seen and heard and loved? And I think that that's really the guideline for creating a safe space is like, am I allowing a space where my partner feels seen by me?
Yeah.
Does my partner feel like I'm listening to what they're saying? Or am I always waiting to interrupt? Am I always waiting? No, but you didn't hear what I said. But what, right? We always have, right, a comeback for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And do they feel loved? Am I filling their cup enough to where it's like, yeah, of course, like I feel connected to this. I feel loved and seen and valued and like I matter in this person's life. Like those are like easy steps to take to really like kind of have that checklist in your head, those three things.
Wow. Okay. I mean, it's funny that you said some of the things, especially, I think the biggest is always self-awareness, right? And some of
Yes,
us don't get that until later on in life, or
correct.
if we're lucky, it might be when you're younger. So, like for me, Courtney, I was definitely not self-aware on some of the things I was doing, because I
Mm,
always wonder, like, okay, why is this not working now? Maybe I'm this or maybe I'm that. And it
yeah.
took a while for me to realize, okay, I need to be more forceful, and not saying in a bad way, but in other words, like take charge, plan the date, set certain boundaries and things like that, because it wasn't working for some of my relationships, especially in my 30s and even up to 40s.
Mhm.
Um, I think the biggest thing, like you said, is always self-awareness. But again, going back to that one, how do we know? Is it there a trigger? Is it you just finally said enough is enough? What am I doing wrong? How can I make this better? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we need to get out of a victim mentality. And
Mm,
so when we see ourselves as like, oh, it never works, it's always, my fault, or it's always everybody else's fault. Like instead, like at some point, we have to grow up and take responsibility for our life
yeah.
and for our actions. And when we're able to do that, that's when that switch occurs. So until then, I don't think that a person who can really have self-awareness until they're really willing to give up the poor me. And not saying that they don't have, legitimate reasons to feel like a victim, but that doesn't, thinking that way doesn't serve you. It's
Right.
harming you. It's keeping you stuck. It's infiltrating your relationships.
Yeah, and you're always thinking negative, like you just
Yeah,
said. Yeah, it's always my fault. You see, I'm not good at
yeah,
relationships.
yeah.
So when we get to the point where, you're in a relationship, and then, like you said earlier, the woman could be overwhelmed, or your girlfriend could be overwhelmed with certain
Mhm,
things that they're doing at home or at work, or their own business. Are Is there another way that we could make the woman feel safer besides talking to her, but
mhm.
maybe a gift here or there, taking her on vacation, just making her feel that she's appreciated? Does that come into play where, hey, I appreciate what you've done. And just telling her that, or
Yeah.
showing her that you appreciate her.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way to do that. And I think, getting her on board of like, how can I, make you feel loved? What can I do to show you my appreciation?
Mm,
For some women, or for some people, like, gosh, they just go over the moon if you bring them home flowers. And other
yeah.
women, they're like, what the hell am I going to do with these? Like, I don't want that. Right.
Yeah.
The intention is there, but a lot of times people give to make themselves feel better. And so it's really important that you're asking, like, what could I do that would make my partner feel better, that would
Right.
help them feel loved, help them feel seen, help them feel valued. And again, that all contributes to them feeling safe.
Gotcha. And we're talking with Courtney Boyer. Today's topic is why women don't want to have sex and what to do about it. I think that's always the biggest thing. I don't think a lot of men show appreciation.
Yeah.
I know I went through that I didn't show any, I took everything for granted. And
Yeah.
of course that doesn't work, whether it's gifts or just saying it. I think the words, a hug here, say, hey,
Yeah.
everything will be okay, everything will work out. And I think most women, if not all, or at least some women, they just, they want assurance. Am I on the right track with that? At least, show them assurance, or tell them, hey, everything's going to work out, or hey, I'm here for you if you need me.
Yeah. I would say
Yeah.
that women like appreciation,
Okay.
to be like, thank you for, like, I see what you're doing. Like, thank you.
Mhm.
Like, I see that you do my laundry and that you fold my socks a special way. Like, I see that you get my favorite cookies at the store. Like, I see that you're so patient with our kids and you read them stories every night. Like, what do you admire about them? Like, why are you
Mm.
with them? Like, speak truth into their life in a way that is not like, hey, thanks for dinner. It was great. Right. Okay. I mean, not that that's not appreciated, but like,
Yeah, but it's the way you say it though, right? I mean,
yeah,
yeah, that one, yeah, that's like, yeah, thanks for dinner. That could be like sarcastic, but I like it. It's the way you say it, the way you show the appreciation, the way you come off, right?
yeah. Or finding like special ways to connect with her. Like if you know that she loves reading books, like, hey, do you want to read a book together? Or like,
Right.
I'd really love for you to, even if you don't really care that much about the book that she's reading, I'd love to hear, like, tell me what your book's about. Show
Yeah.
interest in the things that she is interested in. Like
Gotcha.
find a way to connect with, enter her world. Find a way to enter her world.
No, I love that. I mean, first of all, Connie, I want to thank you so much for being on People on Dating. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it. Talk more about your coaching.
Yeah, so I work with individuals and couples, and I
Okay.
help them figure out how they can prioritize pleasure and create a life that is more pleasure centered and rewarding and fulfilling.
Okay. And talk about your book, because I think that, first of all, it's one of the best titles I ever saw in a
Oh,
book.
thank you.
So talk
Yeah.
more about that.
Yes. So it's focused on like two women, written to women, but I've had so many men read it who have
Yeah.
learned so much. I have couples that read it together. It is really meant to help women understand that they are not broken, that the messages that they've gotten about their bodies, about their sexuality are just so harmful, and
Yeah.
really helping just anybody understand like the pressures, the disconnection of what contributes to women just really kind of checking out of sex, and then talks about ways to overcome that, and how to really like a practical approach to solving this issue.
Yeah. Tell us the title of that book again.
It's called Not Tonight, Honey: Why Women Actually Don't Want Sex and What We Can Do About It.
No, I love it. Great title. And,
Thank you.
anything else you want to talk about or promote?
Yeah, so I have a retreat coming up in June for a
Ah,
small
okay.
group of women in Paris, France. It is a sexual empowerment retreat. So it's really focused for women who feel like I could go forever without having sex, or they just are like, they want to come back to themselves. So they want to
Right.
come back to their sexuality and feel really connected to that. And then I also offer one-on-one concierge retreats. So
Okay.
women who are not quite ready to do a group, but they are really motivated and like, okay, I'm going to do an intensive weekend with Courtney. We're going to work through a bunch of stuff. We're going to do it in a beautiful part of the world. Like, if you want to send your girlfriend or your wife on a beautiful, retreat that helps her get back in touch with her sexuality, like,
Yeah.
man, you're going to score a lot of points.
No, sounds good. And if somebody wanted to get in contact with you, what's the best way?
Sure. So I'm on social media. You can pretty much find me anywhere at Courtney Boyer Coaching, and that's Courtney with a C. And then my website is CourtneyBoyerCoaching.com.
No, sounds good. Well, first of all, Courtney, again, thank you so much for being on People and Dating. I really, really
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
You're so welcome.
Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Yep, my pleasure. Bye bye.